Ladies and gentlemen, would you please be upstanding for the Chair of Rochford District Council, Councillor Sarah Jane Page, the Vice Chair, Councillor Joe McPherson, the Deputy Chief Executive, Paul Birkinshaw, and the Reverend Tracy Nutter.
Good evening, members, ladies and gentlemen. Could I ask everyone to note the fire safety instruction? There are no planned fire drills for tonight. If, however, the alarm goes off, please use the fire exit through the main doors directly behind you. Please do not delay your evacuation to collect any belongings into the main entrance to the building. Please do not return to the building until given permission to do so by council staff. I would also like to remind you to please switch off your mobile phones or turn them to silent. Please note that the meeting will be live streamed, where the proceedings are capable of repeated viewing. Members of the public can record at this meeting, providing it does not disturb the meeting and can be done from the seats reserved for this purpose. Therefore, please raise your hand clearly if you intend to take photographs or film this evening. Thank you. Please ensure your microphone is switched on when speaking and you speak clearly into the microphone. Once finished speaking, can you please switch off your microphone to avoid any feedback noise? If you are seated in the public area of the chamber, it is likely that your image will be captured on the recording cameras and result in your image being part of the broadcast. If members are, for any reason, not present for the whole of the debate on an item, you should consider and seek advice as necessary on whether it would be appropriate for you to vote on that item. Thank you.
Members, my chaplain, the Reverend Glenn Mansfield, is on holiday, and the Reverend Tracy Nutter has very kindly offered to deputise for us. Please stand, continue to stand with us if you're able, and off we go, please, Tracy. Thank you.
Well, tonight is obviously a very joyous occasion. We are back in the Civic Suite. I understand we've not been here for quite a long time, so we give thanks for that this evening. So I've come to actually lead the prayers at the beginning of your meeting. So would you please bow your heads this evening? Heavenly Father, as we have gathered this evening, we ask for your guidance, wisdom and support as we begin our meeting. Help each council member to value and appreciate those with whom they gather this evening. Help each council member to listen attentively to others with both an open heart and mind, not being quick to judge or criticize, but instead seeking to understand what may be a different perspective. As they deliberate on the items before them this evening, may their words be both kind and respectful. As you guide them on this path, may they work well together to reach a consensus, then making the best decisions that are wise and good and fair for all. May this meeting this evening be both productive and fruitful. Amen. And for those who would wish to, please join me in saying the Lord's Prayer using the traditional words. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. So may God's blessing be on this place, the Civic Suite. May God's blessing be on all of the meetings that are held in this space. And may God's blessing be on this council meeting this evening. And may the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be with each of you and all those you love today and always. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. Reverend Tracy Nutter, you're very welcome to join us for the evening, but business is going to be quite lengthy, so if you would like to leave, you're very, very welcome to, and thank you so much for giving up your time.
Thank you.
Bless you. Right, members, we'll move on to item 1 of our agenda. Apologies for absence. We have Councillor Capon, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Stanley, Councillor Shaw, and Councillor Mrs. Shaw. Are there any other apologies? Councillor Hoy?
Councillor Mr. Stuart Wilson.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Any others? Thank you. So, item 2, the minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of July 2024. Do we all agree to these minutes? Agreed. Thank you. And then we're going forward into the announcements, which starts with May. Sorry. Oh, sorry, I do apologise, yes, and quite rightly. Item 3, to receive declarations of interest, please. So, Councillor
Thank you, Chairman. Item 13, particular motion is 1.3. As an Essex County Councillor, it gives me a conflict of interest and I will be leaving the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Steptoe. Is there anybody else declaring interest? Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As an Essex County Councillor, but I don't believe I need to leave the debate for that reason.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Councillor Newport.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As an Essex County Councillor, the same item. I won't be leaving for the debate.
Thank you very much. That's all the declarations. Thank you. So moving on, announcements from myself. Good evening, members, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to take this opportunity and welcome you all back into our beautiful historic council chamber here at the Civic Suite. I'm delighted also to congratulate Councillor James Newport, Councillor Andy Cross, Councillor and Mayor of Brentwood, Mark Hay, and all of Team Rochford Brentwood, the One Team, on their amazing achievements and team taking part in the recent Three Peaks Challenge and raising such a significant amount of money for Cancer Research UK. I understand that it was a challenge indeed, so sincerely, a very big well done to you all. Since my last update, I have been so privileged and honoured to meet so many people from our amazing and beautiful community across our district and surrounding cities and boroughs. These engagements have been interesting, informative, and very engaging. I truly am enjoying representing our district, supporting and promoting our community. I've been honoured to support the work of care homes, schools, colleges, churches, community groups, exhibitions, visiting beautiful gardens and much, much more across the district, including Pine Tree Resident Home, looking at their new facilities and being part of the opening ceremony, Stystead Hall celebrating the many lodges in Rochford and all the charity work they do, summer music festivals, the amazing talents within the schools and Greenswood, King Edmunds and Fitzwymark and Seavick, the splendid Global Village project at King George's, Rayleigh in conjunction with the UK SPF Fund, summer music festivals and fabulous award ceremonies celebrating our lovely succession generations and much, much more, networking our communities and signposting contacts. Of course, come rain, come shine too, we have a rather rainy summer for these events. We raised the flag at the beginning of the month for the Merchant Navy Day. This significant day highlights the indispensable role of merchant seafarers past, present and future. Finally, I have my upcoming charity curry night at the Saffron on the 22nd of October, where I do hope you will be able to come and join me and support my lovely chosen charities. Thank you very much. Councillor Newport, the leader of the council, would you like to make any kind of announcements?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brief announcements. I'd like to thank all the staff for their hard work and preparation in getting the Civic Suite ready for our council meetings tonight. And it does feel good to be back in our rightful home. The Cultural and Visitor Economy Survey of today has 905 responses, and we'd like to thank the Economic Development team and all the members of the public and councillors that have worked so hard to promote this. Could I just remind members to please keep sharing with their networks as the survey closes on the 19th of September. I think you've mentioned it earlier about the Three Peaks Challenge, and I think it's right that to mention our Chief Executive, Jonathan Stevenson, who's not here tonight, but on his achievement and due to his hard work outside of council in devising a plan to inflict blisters on hundreds of unwitting participants in the Three Peaks Challenge. Or maybe that was just me. So far, collectively raising over £225,000 supporting Cancer Research UK. I think he rightly deserves recognition for pulling it all together and making it such a success. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Newport. The Deputy Chief Executive, Paul Birkinshaw, would you like to say anything? Thank you very much. So moving on, members, we're going to item 5, public questions and member questions on notice. I have this evening received one question from a member of the public, which is set out on page 5.1 of the electronic agenda and provided separately. The question is from Mr. Ian Foster to Councillor Cripps, the Chairman of Planning and Policy Committee. Mr. Foster, could you come up and take your seat, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. A background to my question. The local plan requirement for gypsy and traveller pitches for the current local plan period is 15. Of these, 14 have been granted and in place, and a retrospective application for 5 pitches on an existing site is under consideration. An independent 2019 report commissioned by South Essex authorities identified a total need of 18 pitches for gypsy and traveller households to the period 2016 to 2038, which includes 15 from the current local plan period. There are 17 occupied but unapproved pitches in the district. At the December 2023 full council, a Conservative motion on notice proposed that RDC seek planning permission for these pitches. This would more than satisfy the need through to 2038 and protect us from inappropriate applications on Greenbelt and other land. The administration amended the motion, thus deferring the proposal for the Planning Policy Committee to consider. The question on notice is therefore, what progress has been made by the Planning Policy Committee in delivering the proposal for Rochford District Council to seek planning permission for the occupied but unapproved Gypsy and Traveller pitches in Rochford District to satisfy the South Essex Authority's commissioned 2019 Council Research Services identified requirement and protect the district from inappropriate Gypsy and Traveller pitch applications. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Councillor Jim Cripps, would you like to make your reply, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Ian. Nice to see you again.
Thank you.
About 4 or 5 weeks ago, I commissioned a briefing session for all ward councillors on this subject of where we are with the Gypsy and Traveller accommodation need. What I've done is that took an hour or so. What I've done is to try to condense it into a synopsis here in order to respond to your question with that same information. Bear with me because it's still 2 pages. The Gypsy and Traveller Accommodation Assessment 2019 update is the Council's most up-to-date position relating to the need for additional pitches in the district. At the time of its publication, the GTAA stated the number of Gypsy and Traveller households in Rochford that met the planning definition required 15 additional pitches by 2026. The GTA also forecast it was 18 to get to 2038. Since the publication of that 2019 GTAA, 12 additional pitches have been delivered. However, December 2023, the government changed the planning definition of a Gypsy and Traveller following a successful court case where the definition was found to be unlawfully discriminate against elderly or infirm who had to give up travelling permanently because it was no longer possible for them to do so. The changes in this definition now meant that those Gypsy and Travellers who in 2019 were found not to meet the definition now more than likely did qualify. And as a result, an additional need for pitches for these families now had to be delivered. This has added an additional 11 pitches to be provided over the planned period, plus an assumed need for 3 more where interviews were not possible with various Gypsies. The figures are therefore 18 who met the 2015 definition, plus 3 where it was unknown, plus 11 who now likely met the new amended definition. This equals 32 additional pitches. As previously mentioned, 12 additional pitches have been approved since 2019. 32 minus 12 leaves a further 20 pitches to be delivered over the planned period to 2038. The Conservative motion at full council in December 2023 asked for, the council to seek planning permission for those sites in the district currently occupied by unauthorised sites in order to satisfy the need through to 2038 and protect the district from inappropriate applications on greenbelt land and other land. As Chair of Planning Policy Committee, I took a commitment to look at the short-term and the long-term solutions to the gypsy and traveller pitch need. Short-term has involved officers reviewing the unauthorised sites in some detail, past history, applications, dialogue with individuals, and general getting their head around where those sites are at the moment in terms of meeting a requirement. Since then, there's been a lot of negotiations with the owners of plots and pitches. Since December 2023, planning applications on 3 of those sites have been submitted. It is anticipated in the medium term, the outcome of some of those applications may result in further application on unauthorised sites coming forward. There seems to be a great deal of interest in it, but waiting to see the result of the existing ones that are in. Long term, the council is working on the new local plan where allocation for land for gypsies and traveller pitch provision will be necessary. However, a new GTAA has been commissioned to ensure an up-to-date position is available for the new local plan. We are expecting the need figure for the district to substantially increase to reflect the change in the planning definition of gypsy and traveller and any new need. Survey work and interviews have been undertaken and the new GTAA is expected to be published very shortly. But we will want to be satisfied with the methodology used before the scale of any increases is accepted. Until then, the most up-to-date assessment is the 2019 GTAA and is still material and accepted when making decisions on planning applications. And very recently, we also now have a new government that is out for consultation on proposed changes to the MPPF, and that will include an element of change on the gypsy and traveller requirements, although it's not clear at the moment how far that goes until we've had a response from the government to our return. So in answer to your question, Ian, it's been difficult, but we have achieved some new planning applications coming in. And unfortunately, in the opposite direction, we've had this increase in the brought about by revised definition of a gypsy and a traveller. That was the essence of what all ward councillors got about 4 or 5 weeks ago in the update on the progress. That's where we're at.
Okay, thank you. If I may, Madam Chairman, I'll come back with a supplementary on
I
that.
was just going to guide you to do that, actually. Thank you, Councillor Cripps. Mr. Foster, if you'd like to ask a supplementary question, thank you.
Right, thank you. Thank you for that response. If I picked that up correctly, I think you said 3 of those occupied but unapproved have submitted planning permission. And I think you said 4 more are under negotiation. But my point is, and it's a supplementary question, if you go back to the motion on notice in December 2023, the proposition was that Rochford District Council go ahead and make planning applications, which they are allowed to do, with an objective of getting all of those 17 occupied but unapproved sites to become approved and therefore included in the count and satisfy some of those, for example, new definition of residential, permanent residential, gypsy and traveller folk. So my question is, why not go ahead with the terms of the motion on notice that was put forward back in December last year? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Foster. Councillor Cripps, would you like to respond to Mr Foster for me, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The conversation back then was that I committed to try to do what you wanted in the short term, and then the long term will be dealt with by the new local plan, and that still remains the situation. I took officers' advice on how we went about tackling getting these unauthorised sites to come forward, and it proved initially very difficult to get any sort of response, but eventually we started to get responses, and it was quite tough because it's not an easy thing to negotiate, because we can't just change the name unauthorised to authorised. We have to be sure, and we have to make the owners aware that they need to meet a certain amount of criteria for us to be able to treat them as authorised as opposed to unauthorised. So the route we went down, and I did brief the planning policy group briefly in a working group, that we identified sites and that they all had an extensive history, and it needed a lot of research to make sure that when we went into the negotiation situation, we could deal with it. So I took their advice on going down the route of research, negotiation, and what I'm answering here, your initial questions, the progress is that we've got some to come forward, but that's coincided when we've been trumped, if you like, by the change in definition of gypsy and traveller, which changes the numbers. So with that and the new GTA coming forward, and then the new government with a revised MPPF, it's clearly going to be a challenge. But we have tried, and we will carry on now with negotiating with others, because there are others who are watching the applications that are in, and there is a feeling that they're going to come forward if they're successful. So we need to go through due process now with those applications and see how we fare in those applications, which I think, if they're positive, it will attract others coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cripps. And Madam Chairman.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr Foster. Thank you, Councillor Cripps, and thank you very much, Mr Foster. If you'd like to make your way back to your chair. Now we're going to move on to member questions on notice. Members, we have received 3 questions from members of the council, which are set out on page 5.1 of the electronic agenda and which have been circulated to all members. There is a period of 15 minutes for member questions time, and I'm sure we will get through all 3 questions in that time. However, any questions not reached during this time period will be responded to in writing. If we have started any question within that allocated 15-minute time period, I will allow that question to be completed, including the supplementary question and answers. I hope that's clear to everybody. So we're going to go to question 1. And this question is from Councillor Eaves, please, to Councillor James Newport, the Leader of the Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The new administration has the unenviable job of determining and finalising the new local plan. As we are all aware, the Liberal Democrat Party has the majority on the current administration and therefore effectively the leadership of the council. It is a stated objective of the National Liberal Democrat Party to build a number of garden cities in the country. The Leader of the council backed this up in an interview that was published in the Echo newspaper a short while ago. Being on the Planning Policy Committee, I can confirm that this has not been discussed previously. Having given the interview to the Echo, I have received questions from residents as to whether the current administration will introduce this as a focus of intent in the Rochford district going forward. Can the leader confirm for our residents that this has not been discussed in any degree of seriousness and is not the stated intention of the council for the Rochford district? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eaves. Councillor Newport, would you like to respond for us?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Eaves, for your question. First of all, I just wanted to make a point that although we are the largest group, it would be arrogant of me to say that we're effectively the leadership, as we're in partnership with the non-aligned group and we lead together. So to answer the specific question, I can confirm that there are no detailed discussions regarding the possibility of a new garden community in Rochford. The government has recently published a new national planning policy framework, which includes a mandatory housing target for each area. The Rochford housing number has risen from 356 to 675. If these figures are confirmed, the council will need to consider all options to deliver the housing growth alongside key infrastructure such as affordable homes, transport links, and health provision in a sustainable way. Any proposals to allocate land or policies in the new local plan are subject to discussion at the Planning Policy Working Group, which is a cross-party group supporting the Planning Policy Committee and will be supported by a fully comprehensive evidence base. A draft local plan will also be subject to further public engagement and consultation to give residents the opportunity to have their say on proposals in due course. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Newport. Councillor Eaves, would you like to give a supplementary question?
No, I'm satisfied with the answer. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. Moving forwards, we have question 2. This is from Councillor FD to Councillor James Newport, the leader of the council.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. With the increase of the taxi licence fee directly reflecting the costing officer time, will the council seek to impose the same business model on all council services as an indirect tax on our residents to address the budgetary decisions of the administration? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor FD. Councillor James Newport, would you like to respond, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Councillor FD, for your question. As you will be aware, some fees and charges are governed by statute or regulation. In such cases, the council may not have discretion over the charge levied, as it is either fixed or the method of calculation is prescribed. But I believe the councillor's question is in respect of those charges where council has discretion. Ultimately, it's for full council to approve any changes to fees and charges, usually as part of the budget process. Proposed charges are arrived at by the relevant service consulting with customers, as well as benchmarking against other local authorities. As a general principle, it would seem to be fair for charges for council services to reflect costs. The services in question are mostly discretionary. That is, the customer can choose whether or not to receive a service and pay the charge. This is different to, say, council tax, where, short of moving to a smaller property, a customer has to pay the council tax charge for their property. Then the income from council tax is used to fund council services in general. The alternative to charging the full cost of a service is to subsidise it. This is where the question of fairness is relevant. Is it right to provide subsidised services to customers who choose to take advantage of that service, especially as there is no assessment of that customer's ability to pay? If we subsidise such services, then customers, some of whom will not even live in the district or will comfortably be able to pay in full for the service, will be subsidised by Rochford Council taxpayers. In direct answer to your question, this administration would seek to ensure that services are provided as efficiently and economically as possible, and to charge the cost of providing services insofar as regulations allow, and subject, of course, to full council approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newport. Councillor FD, would you like to come back on that?
Thank you, Chairman. listening to what you say, just taking a second to digest it. The council, I hope the administration, when they look at the new fees, will look especially at businesses, because businesses, when they pay a exorbitant fee, will pass it on to their residents, not their residents, their customers, who happen to be mostly our residents. So the cost of living, I hope the residents don't get a burden of council decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor FD. Whoever's got their phone ringing, please, can I have that switched off? Thank you. Councillor Newport. We're all done. I've just got distracted.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I don't believe there, I think the question was, will we consider that? And I take Councillor FD's point, and yeah, we'll consider that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving forwards to question 3. This is from Councillor Mrs Belton to Councillor James Newport, the Leader of the Council. Councillor Belton.
Thank you. In May 2024, this council moved to a committee system, a change that was brought forward from the previous administration, suggesting a more democratic process would be achieved. I have since been made aware that the council leader, deputy leader, and committee chairs from the administration only are meeting with the senior leadership team for what appears to be a behind the closed doors an executive style meeting. Can the leader explain why, and furthermore confirm if committee chairs in conjunction with their committee members have formulated work plans yet? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Belton. Councillor James Newport, would you like to respond, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Councillor Belton, for your question. At its annual council meeting held in May, when the council moved to a committee system form of governance, it also made a number of appointments, including that of leader and deputy leader, and as chairs of various committees. In doing so, it gave the responsibility to such people and asked them to lead across their individual areas of responsibility, which they are doing. To my mind, it is beneficial and appropriate for myself, the deputy leader, and committee chairs to meet informally to ensure that we are effectively coordinating activity. And this will be even more relevant to ensure we are collectively delivering against the new corporate plan approved by the council. The council will have its own peer review by the Local Government Association in April next year. And I note the comments from the recent peer review of our partners at Brentwood, in which the report said, in addition to the current programme of formal and informal meetings between officers and members, peers recommend that Brentwood Borough Council introduce an informal monthly meeting of senior officers, chief executive, section 151, MO and strategic directors with the lead and committee chairs to discuss council strategy and progress. This should be an open and honest forum to discuss, challenge and debate the important issues facing the council. It should also be a place where nobody is afraid to speak truth to power. Finally, I agree that clear work programmes across committees will be helpful. We have worked hard to quickly bring forward a new corporate plan, which is on the agenda this evening, which can guide the committee's work programmes to ensure they are focusing on delivering issues and services within the corporate plan which fall within their remit, as well as other relevant issues that might arise. Going forward, there will be a standing item on the agenda for all policy service committees relating to the work programme, in order that there is clarity for the committee and officers on which issues are forthcoming and effectively manage their resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newport. Councillor Belton, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Newport, for that response, which does sound to me exactly like an executive style meeting, as used to be held under the executive style committee. Now, given the peer review suggested an open and honest forum, would the leader and his executive style chairman be happy to provide agendas, notes or minutes, depending on the formality of the meeting, for other members to review? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Belton. Councillor Newport. you like to come back?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will need to take advice from the monitoring officer on that specific item.
Councillor,
And yeah, shall I finish?
I'm happy, Chairman, to comment. I think he's right that the leader takes advice. I suggest that he will need to consider that advice and respond to members in writing would move my suggested course of action.
thank you. So members, we now have a number of reports from the council committees before us. Can I firstly set out briefly the procedure for dealing with these? I will invite the relevant committee chairman or vice chairman to move the report. I will then ask for a seconder who may speak or reserve their right to do so until later in the debate. The matter will then be opened up for debate. If any question arises from a member's speech, I will ask the relevant committee chairman or vice chairman to respond at the end of the member's speech. They may in turn ask the relevant officer to respond on their behalf. At the end of the debate, the relevant chairman or vice chairman will be asked to wind up before we take a vote. All speeches have a time limit of 5 minutes, and I will give members an indication when there is 30 seconds remaining. Thank you. So we're going to item 6, which is the draft corporate plan 2024 to 2028. The report begins on page 6.1 of your agendas. I would like now to invite Councillor Mr. James Newport, Chairman of the Strategy and Finance and Policy Committee, to introduce the report and move the recommendations, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, before members is the proposed corporate plan 2024-28, which reflects the key focus of the organisation across 3 pillars. Our primary role of delivering effective and efficient local government services to residents in the district. Our strategic priorities across 3 themes: communities and homes, places and services, economy and prosperity. The importance of being an effective and trusted organisation to deliver the commitments in our corporate plan. The corporate plan will provide the basis for developing the wider organisational framework to ensure we have a coordinated, effective and efficient approach to deliver the priorities in the corporate plan across the 3 pillars that I've referred to, and provide the basis of alignment of our financial and human resources and the work programmes of our policy committees. We will also ensure arrangements are in place for regular reporting of performance against the plan and an annual report to Council. The corporate plan will be a living document that will be subject to annual review and will be brought forward for approval alongside the proposed budget and capital programme in February each year. The corporate plan, which Council is asking to approve this evening, will be subject to consultation over the autumn, alongside our consultation on the budget, to identify any refinements we may wish to make in future years. And I will look forward to the various policy committees contributing to this work as well. The arrangement I have set out will be an evolving process, and I am pleased to present the corporate plan for approval tonight as the catalyst for this and delivering our commitment to achieve the best outcomes for Rochford District, its residents and businesses. Chairman, I'd like to move recommendations R1 and R2. R1, that the corporate plan 2024-28 attached within Appendix A of the report be approved and adopted. And R2, that the Council's corporate plan be subject to annual review and approval alongside approval of the budget. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Newport. Have I got a seconder for that, please? Councillor Hoy.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll be seconding that.
Okay. Would you like to speak on this motion?
Thank you, Chair. I don't think I have anything to add to what Councillor James Newport said. I think he echoed what I would say word for word. Thank you.
Okay, members, this is open for debate now, and I understand Councillor Mason. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I haven't got any particular issues with the draft at this stage, but I want to sound a note of caution, and indeed a note of caution which has already been mentioned twice this evening. In particular, the Labour government has introduced consultation on a new radical MPPF. And if that is proceeded in the manner they intend, then I would say to you that this corporate plan will have to be significantly revised in February 25, because it's going to have all sorts of effects upon the issues. The issues of more homes means more schools, means more health, means more transport, particularly transport which is public transport to within the district, outside the district, and to London. So let's not forget that the government is going to have a significant impact upon any corporate plan that we make. Then it is not simply our own total gift. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Mrs. Belton.
Thank you. Firstly, we find ourselves in a strange situation because half of us debated this agenda only last night. So apologies to those that were here because there's going to be an element of deja vu. But for the record, there's a couple of points I'd like to make without fully repeating myself. The corporate plan is admirable in that it covers items I think most councils would want to see. Good standards of living, good amenities, so on and so forth. It does lack an element of the detail about how the plan will be achieved, which was discussed last night, and hopefully we will see some of that detail in future months. There's a lot of data within the report, but without the context of what those numbers mean. Do we wish to do better than those numbers? Are those numbers our KPIs? So I think there's some information there that's missing in terms of what we hope the outcome will be. But most importantly, and the point I made last night, and nothing really changed since then, this is the administration's corporate plan. Nobody else has had any input into it. There was suggestion that chairman had discussed it with their committees as part of the work plan, but I think that is what is hoped to be achieved, but not what has been achieved as of yet. Therefore, as a member of the committees that has had no involvement in the corporate plan, I'm not comfortable in supporting it, but that's not to say I'm against it. And it's much to echo the comments that were made last night. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Belton. Do we have any other members that would like to join the debate? Nobody's indicated, so Councillor Newport, can I get you to wind up, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I've nothing really to add, except to thank Councillor Mason for his wisdom in these matters, and we do appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Newport. So, members, let's go forward onto the recommendations. I'm going to read them out to you, and we'll go to a vote. R1, that the corporate plan 2024 to 2028 attached within Appendix A of the report be approved and adopted. R2, that the council's corporate plan be subject to annual review and approval alongside approval of the budget. We'll take the two together. Yeah, so just a show of hands. Yeah. So members, all those in favour, please. Thank you, members. And those against, please. And those abstaining. So, members, we have 24 for, none against, and abstain 9. Thank you very much. That's carried. Okay, we're going to item 7, which is 2023-2024 draft financial outturn reserves. The reports begin on page 7.1 of the agenda, and I will invite Councillor Mr. James Newport, Chairman of the Strategy, Finance and Policy Committee, to introduce the report and move the recommendations, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So this item was considered and approved at Strategy, Finance and Policy Committee last night. The report is attached as Appendix A for information. Some of the highlights of this report: the Council achieved a significant revenue underspend in 2023-24, and this report seeks Council approval to use that underspend by allocating it to reserves. Paragraph 1.2, pages 7.1 and 7.2 of the report highlights the proposed allocations. These allocations will help insulate the Council in respect of future funding shortfalls and make provisions for known costs that are likely to occur in the current year and next year. Chairman, I'd like to move the recommendation to approve the contributions to reserves as set out in paragraph 1.2 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newport. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Michael Hoy.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I will second that. And again, I don't see the need that I need to speak on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to open that for debate, please, members. Councillor Mrs. Belton.
Thank you. And again, apologies, members, because some of this is a repetition. So Tim Willis ably explained the report last night and gave some of the detail. But the issue that I still have within the report and had last night was that of the 1.6 we're moving to the earmarked reserves, of which most was through a windfall, which is fantastic, through increased interest on our investments. 1 million of that feels to me too much like a blank cheque with no detail. So the parts that I have a big concern with, 250,000 to further transform services for the purpose of better service delivery and efficiencies. That is something, of course, and I believe others would be able to get behind, but there is absolutely no detail as to what that means. How are we going to do it, and what is that money going to be spent on? Is it going to be spent on consultations to see how our services could be improved, for example? So without the detail behind it, I've got a big concern with just writing off 250,000. We have 250,000 to enhance corporate priorities reserve. This already has 250,000. And we still don't know what that is. We've seen the strategy now, which gives us the outline, but still none of the detail. And I've got concerns that we're just essentially putting £500,000 in a pot to spend this financial year, but with absolutely zero direction or information. And again, I've just got concerns about being so flippant with sort of moving money to pots without context. I could go on. I have concerns with most of the detail. The local plan is a concern because so much has already been spent, and had we have worked at a faster pace, we may well have been in a position that we're not having to throw more money at it, Labour problem aside. The shortfall in funding of the capital programme, again, whilst we're about to see a report showing us the breakdown of the capital programme, when we asked questions last night about what that programme looks like, we were told reports will come forward. So we're being asked to approve money without seeing the detail. And again, that's just a bit of a concern for me when we're talking about such a large sum. So I don't have a problem in general with money being moved to earmarked reserves, but I do when those earmarked reserves are so loose, and also when we've spent virtually nothing out of the plan for this financial year and we're halfway through it. I do recognise the points Tim made about you don't spend as much at the beginning, the legwork, finding the quotes and so on, and that the money will come later, but I still don't think we're going to be delivering it, and I think it's going to be needing another review. But I think I've said enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Belton. Is there any? Councillor Ian Ward.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My colleague, Councillor Belton, did pick up one point with regard to the local plan and 250,000. It's great disappointment to me that the original plan that we had set out, at this time, we would have been at inspection. We would not have had the Labour government's problems thrust upon us, we would have completed it and the numbers delivered would have been those numbers. So it's a disappointment to me personally that a year has been wasted on other things in regards to this administration, and not sufficient effort has been put into and resource into the local plan. And that's a great disappointment to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Newport.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very, very disappointed to hear this statement from Councillor Ward on two aspects of what the comments he's just made. The first one being that it would have made no difference if we actually had a local plan in place. We would have still had to revise it. I think I'm correct in saying that. And the second point I'd like to make is when the Conservatives were in control of the administration, planning policy had one meeting in a whole year. But he tries to attribute this delay to the current administration and the joint administration before that. But it was in fact his administration that stalled on delivering the local plan. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Newport. Councillor Constable, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Considering that the council has quite a large surplus, I would like to ask the leader of the council why some of that money has not been put towards funding the rangers, which would be a great benefit to all the residents in the borough. I've made repeated requests for rangers to do work in cutting trees around road safety signs in my area. And I've been told that the rangers are no longer being funded by this council. So I'd like to ask why this council isn't looking at funding the rangers from some of this surplus.
Councillor Newport, do you want to reply to, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I can respond to the member. Highways Rangers has been discussed on a number of occasions. It's unbudgeted. If we were to look at the Highways Rangers again, we'd need to look at that. But at this present time, we're not bringing that service in. That was agreed by council in the budget of this year. So at the moment, there's no further detail on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newport. Councillor Cripps.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also would like to reply to Councillor Ward's statements. When I took over the planning policy about a year ago, it was very, very quick, very obvious there hadn't been any meetings in the planning policy. I also went through all the deliverables that were required and found that the majority of deliverables were yet to come forward. So I switched to monthly meetings, basically formal meetings, followed by a workshop, followed by a formal meeting, followed by a workshop, followed by a meeting, and so on and so on. It was obvious to me that the original plan wasn't achievable. And that proved to be the case. We just about caught up where we should be by the end of the year, which was supposed to be when we'd finished it. That was churning out all these undelivered documentation. We then rolled over into the other deliverables, which comes from consultants. So this idea that it could have all been done very quickly and we could avoid everything, total nonsense, frankly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cripps. Councillor John Mason.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm certainly not going to pursue any further the issues raised with regard to the local plan and the activities of the Planning Policy Committee prior to the joint administration. I think it's quite evident that one meeting a year wouldn't have allowed that to proceed. I'm a little concerned about hearing about the Rangers again, because I wrote, as the current leader at the time, to Essex County Council, and I asked them how they were going to deal with the issue of the absence of budget from Rochester District Council, or maybe other councils, to a service that is one that they actually provide. And I didn't get a direct reply, but the situation is quite clearly that they've adopted a new policy. The new policy being the landowner will do the work appropriately to clear any vegetation issues that would be in problem for residents. So that is where the Rangers lies, and more particularly, I'm not very keen, and I don't think my group is keen, on seeing double taxation. The residents have paid Essex County Council for the service. They've decided how they're going to deliver it, and I don't see why additional budget should be made available at this point, particularly as we haven't seen how the outturn of that policy is actually going to be seen and delivered. If there are issues with it, I'm sure our scrutiny and performance committee will pick up on it and explain where the deficiencies have been and put Essex County Council in the dock. At the same time, putting Essex County Council in the dock with regard to the £170,000 they don't pay us for cutting their highway verges. I would just like to return initially to what Councillor Belton was saying. Look, I think I said this at the last budget. It is a budget. Money is put aside for consideration as earmarked for particular issues to be explored. They are explored, they are presented back to council, and spending only occurs when a proper proposal has been put and the council agrees to spend it. At the present time, monies being earmarked as a budget are perfectly safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. Councillor FD, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I say, just going back to the local development plan, it says, and it's only a contribution and further spending will be required. So I've got a question. How much have we spent putting the local development plan together up to this point to give us some idea of what's going to be needed to spend in the future? I don't expect an answer to that tonight. If you'd like to write to us future or...
I understand that Tim, the officer, will get back to you in writing. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Belton, you've already spoken at the start of the debate, so I understand you're not allowed to come back in again, sorry. Okay, anyone else would like to speak that hasn't already spoken, please? Okay, Councillor Newport, would you like to wind up the debate?
Madam Chairman, I've nothing to add. I think we've had a good debate on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newport. So, members, I'd like to go to recommendation and the vote on this. So we're going to approve the contributions to reserves as set out in paragraph 1.2 of the report. All those in favour, please. Those against, please. And any abstentions? Thank you. So we have 24 for and 9 against and no abstentions. So that motion is carried. Thank you very much, members. So we're going to move to item 9, funding the 2024-2029 capital programme. The report begins on page 8.1 of your agendas. Councillor Vilma Wilson.
I'm really sorry, Chair. Should we be going to item 8?
I thought I just said item 8.
Sorry, I thought you said item 9. I apologise.
Sorry, I thought I said item 8.
Apologies.
Do apologise. I thought I said 8, but just 1 second. Thank you, members, for bearing with me. So I'd like now to invite Councillor Newport, please, the Chairman of Strategy and Finance and Policy Committee, to introduce the report and move the recommendations, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 8, right. This report, members, this report was considered and approved at Strategy, Finance and Policy Committee last night. The report is attached as Appendix A for information. Members may recall that when Council approved the 5-year capital programme on the 20th of February, it was potentially underfunded by 1.2 million, and there was an undertaking to address the shortfall in 2024-25. The 2023-24 outturn position, as described in the previous agenda item, resulted in a significant underspend. This has enabled the 1.2 million funding to be identified. Appendix 2 on page 8.39 sets out the revised 2024-29 capital programme with the £1.2 million funding included. Whilst approval of this funding will address an outstanding issue from February, I recognise that the programme itself does require some significant reprofiling. There will be reports in the coming weeks and months that will address this need so that we can have an up-to-date capital investment programme that reflects the corporate priorities agreed earlier tonight. Chairman, I'd like to move the recommendation as set out in the report that the revised capital programme for 2024-29 as set out in Appendix 2 of the report to Strategy and Finance and Policy Committee be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Newport. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Chair. I will second that report, and again, I don't feel the need to speak at this time.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open that for debate now to you members. Councillor FD.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In the Appendix 3, first quarter, it doesn't mention Freight House in there. I take it it's other projects to be determined in there, or has that just been completely missed off? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor FD. I will get back to you on that. There is no specific spending requirements yet for the Freight House. We'll have to wait until the end of the consultation to see what residents want for the Freight House and how they want the Freight House used. So until that is the case, we can't allocate any spending to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Councillor Mrs. Belton, please.
Thank you. Again, and I welcome Councillor Newport's points about the need for some of the detail behind this, because this was raised last night. Last night, again, it's an odd one because we only just debated it. I abstained from voting on this purely because of the lack of detail, not because I'm against the capital programme, but because I've got no idea if the money allocated is a finger in the sky, if it's enough money, if it's nowhere near enough money, if it's going to deliver some of the corporate priorities that the administration want to achieve. So whilst I'm pleased to see a revised capital programme that provides more detail than it did at budget stage, in order to support it, I would have needed some more information to ensure that it can actually deliver on what it sets out to. So nothing's changed from last night to tonight, but I do welcome Councillor Newport's points that we will see reports coming forward in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Belton. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? No? Okay. And Councillor, therefore, James Newport, would you like to wind up?
Nothing more to add, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newport. Okay then, members, we're going to go for the recommendation, which I would like to do a vote. The recommendation is that the revised capital programme for 2024-29 as set out in Appendix 2 of the report to Strategy, Finance and Policy Committee be approved. All those in favour, please. Thank you. All those against, please. And any abstentions? So, members, we have 24 for, 0 against, abstain 9. So that motion is carried. Moving on to item 9, vehicle replacement strategy. The report begins on page 9.1 of the agenda. I would like to invite Councillor Julie Gooding, please, the Vice Chairman of the Environment and Climate Change Committee, to introduce the report and move the recommendations, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members. The report speaks for itself. We need vehicles to maintain our services for our residents. Therefore, I would like to move to the recommendations, which are that the purchases of vehicles and plant, I'd like to move these recommendations, that the purchase of vehicles and plant for 2024-25 are approved, as outlined in the Appendix 1, to an approximate value of 202,000, and recommendation 2, that the 20,000 is allocated for the installation of electric vehicle charging points to accommodate the purchase of the electric vehicles as set out in the report, and recommendation 3, that the 123,000 of the above capital cost is funded from the waste vehicle fleet capital budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mrs. Gooding. I would like to invite a seconder to come forward. Councillor Hoy, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I know my place tonight. I will be seconding the motion, and at this point, I don't see the need to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, I'm going to open that for debate now, please. Councillor Constable.
Madam Chairman, I would like to add a fourth recommendation to the report. And the background on this is on page 9.2. Recommendation 3 is that the approval of each procurement process is delegated to the Director of Environment, subject to the procurement being in line with the proposed strategy and Council's contract procedural rules. I would like to add a fourth recommendation on 9.1, that the Director reports back to the Environment Committee each year before any further processes are put forward, so that the committee can make sure that the council is getting value for money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Constable. Councillor Gooding, would you like to respond, or would you like the officer?
The seconder.
Yeah.
We've got to take the seconder first.
Yeah.
Point of order, Chairman, you need a second now. We can debate.
Yeah. Councillor FT, you're going to second it, are you?
Happy to second, thank you.
Okay.
Reserve the right to talk at the end.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gooding, would you like to accept the addition to the amendment to the original recommendations?
No, I don't accept that. Thank you.
Marcus, would you like to comment on it, please, for us?
Thank you. I mean, it's certainly the intention to bring back an annual report to the committee outlining the previous expenditure and the planned expenditure for each year. So it's becoming a rolling 5-year programme. So he doesn't explicitly say that as a recommendation. I think that it's not a challenge to incorporate, shall we say? It's just the wording of that recommendation. I think I'd have to look to others in the council for advice on this. It's just that this is a committee recommendation you're adding to, whereas of course this is actually we're at council now. So I think that the time to have really raised that would have been at committee rather than council. We're speaking to the 3 recommendations to council. I don't think I'd be minded to bring back the report to council each time. My view is to bring back the report to the committee on an annual basis, but I will be doing so because it's in my interest to ensure there is a rolling 5-year programme going forward. But I personally think there's a need specifically to state that. I think it says it within the committee reports, but that's for members to take a view. Thank you.
Paul Birkinshaw, would you like to speak?
Yeah, Chairman, if I can, just to bring some clarity, obviously it's been moved around a report going to the committee annually, and that's been seconded. Obviously, the relevant officer has commented to say that's reasonable. I think it is a matter that council can decide this evening whether they wish for their committee to receive that report. So I think, Chairman, that is a valid amendment that can now be open for debate, and then a vote taken upon that, and that recommendation for that annual report to the committee can be considered.
So we're going to open this up to debate. That's what the monitoring officer is advising us to do at this stage, please. Councillor Mrs Belton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For some clarity, just to confirm, because obviously Councillor Constable and I were on the committee that had a healthy debate at the time, albeit a confusing one at moments. I just want to clarify that I don't think the intention for the recommendation is to have any alterations on the delegated responsibility. We recognise that Marcus Houghton is absolutely the right person to take these forward. It was more, there was a lot of uncertainty and confusion around the vehicles and the suitability of the vehicles and the best vehicles. So having a report come back to committee annually to tell us how those vehicles are performing and value for money will help us understand, one, if we made the right decision last time round, but 2, potentially to help Marcus in any future decision making, albeit it is a delegated responsibility. So we're not intending to change anything. And actually what Marcus has said, that a report would come forward annually, gives some peace of mind to that. But it was purely about that, just to ensure, because there was a lot of debate on the night, a lot of mixed feelings. So to hear how those vehicles are performing will be useful and a good learning tool for members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Belton. Councillor Hoy, please.
Thank you, Chair. I do know the committee system is new to members here, especially those in the current opposition who were used to the strong leadership model with portfolio holders who could make decisions without reference to anyone else up to a certain value. However, I would think the committee members are failing if they don't ask for reports like these annually. This is the role of the committee. I don't think it needs to have a motion at full council to do this. I would expect the committee to be doing this each year anyway. And I think from what Mr Houghton said, that is what he thinks as well. If he can confirm that is the role of the committee and what the committee would do, and they would be reviewing their contracts each year and the purchases they make each year, then I don't see the need for it to go through a motion now. It's already happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Councillor Eaves, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can we have clarification on the wording of this recommendation? Because we are talking around it, but I would like to be able to talk to the specific wording, please. Thank you.
Bear with a moment. Councillor Constable, could you repeat what you were asking so that Claire can make sure she's got it?
Thank you, Chairman. It was recommendation 4 that the director brings the item back to the committee to be discussed each year for the how the vehicles are doing. I believe it's something like that I said. I can't remember exactly because I didn't have it written down.
Thank you. We're just putting it into English.
Okay, Councillor Constable, we're saying that recommendation 4 is the Director of Environment reports back on vehicle performance to an Environmental and Climate Change Committee on an annual basis.
Okay, and we'll go to Councillor Wilson now, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question really on the report, and I apologise to people who are on this committee, however I'm not. I've just got an issue with recommendation 5, which is that...
Madam Chairman, point of order. We are talking to the motion, not about another item.
Sorry. Apologies.
I say we are talking to the motion, not to another item. Could we stick to the motion, please?
We're discussing the amendment at the moment, Councillor Mrs Wilson. Does anyone else want to speak on the amendment? Councillor Efty.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The reason I'm seconding this, as personal knowledge, I use an electric car for my business, and I find that the electric cars with stop and start, which we'll be using, usually use about a third less electricity than what's advertised. So I think it'd be a good to come back to committee to actually report on this to make sure we're getting the right vehicles and they're being used correctly. It's a little bit of confusion myself here with talking about committees. Do I have to go to every committee now because a committee is supposed to report to council and council make the decision? Do I have to go to every committee to put my ideas forward now, or can I, or should we should be able to put our ideas forward at full council and maybe amend something that we're not actually a committee for? I'm a little bit confused about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor FD. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the amendment, please? Yeah. So, members, we're going to go to the vote for that amendment. All those in favour, please. Thank you. All those against, please. Thank you. And anyone abstaining, please. So, members, we have 9 for, 22 against and 2 abstentions. So that motion is lost. We will go back to the substantive motion now. Councillor Mrs Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to withdraw the question that I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Was anybody else like to speak? Councillor FD.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got a couple of questions on the report. One is, why are we looking to replace vehicles in good condition in about a year and a half's time on page 9.9? And also, where there's no replacement being asked for, will they vehicles be going to auction or sold, or are they going to be disposed of? And 9.12, I'm a little bit confused with the report. It says replacement for non-electric vehicles, but it says replacement vehicle type minivan electric tipper. Is that just an oversight on the report, or am I confused there? Doesn't take much. And on 9.14, it's just strange. Why is the Land Rover in such better condition for an 18-year-old vehicle than a lot of the other vehicles that are a lot newer? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor FD. Mr Houghton, can you answer his questions for us, please?
Thank you. Perhaps I'll answer this again. So the Land Rover, I'll start with the simplest one. The Land Rover, it just doesn't do the mileage. It's a very useful vehicle to have, but it's not one that you rely on in quite the same way on the road. So it just doesn't do the same miles. So, you know, it's in relatively good condition still. I think looking back, you've asked, I think the other is about replacements. So it is something obviously that I intend to bring back every year. So this is a forecast of replacement going forward. So I've tried to anticipate where I think replacements will be required. So yes, they're in good condition now, but they are still of quite an age. I think what I don't want to do is be in a position where we're suddenly caught out again, perhaps with the suddenly deteriorating. So, you know, there is two things to consider. One is the physical condition of the vehicle at this time, but it's trying to anticipate the increasing cost of repairs over that period as well. So although you can have a good vehicle in good condition, it gets to the point where just the replacement costs. I mean, a DPF filter, for example, on a diesel, I mean, you can have a good condition diesel vehicle, but if a DPF filter requires replacing on an old diesel, then it's worth more than the vehicle. You know, so it gets to those stages. So there's always been a balance. But I'm confident for these first couple of years. But we are going to be bringing this in every year, looking 5 years ahead. So you may see some variation in. I hope that answers the main thrust of your questioning. Thank you.
Thank you for the answers.
Thank you, Mr Houghton. Councillor Newport, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to say, I will be supporting these recommendations. Just looking at the condition of our vehicles, I mean, I think we're running a classic car show. They're so old. This is actually to bring forward investment in our services that we deliver for our residents. And we want properly run services, efficiently run services. And we need to give the staff the equipment they need to get on and do their job. So I will fully support these recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mr Newport. Anybody else would like to speak? No. So, members, we're going to vote on the recommendations. R1, that the purchase of vehicles and plant for 2024-25 are approved as outlined in the Appendix 1 to an approximate value of £202,000. R2, that £20,000 is allocated for the installation of electric vehicle charging points to accommodate the purchase of the electric vehicles as set out in the report. R3, that £123,000 of the above capital cost is funded from the waste vehicle fleet capital budget. All those in favour, please. Thank you. All those against? And any abstentions? So members, we have 32 for, none against, and 1 abstention. So that is carried. Members, we're going to item 10. This is the exclusion of the press and the public. In order to discuss item 11, I will now move that the press and public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that there would likely be disclosure of exempt information as defined paragraphs 3 and 5 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. I'd like to take a vote on that from the members, please. Thank you. And those against? Anyone abstaining? So that is carried. I will now close the meeting to the public and move into private session. I'd like to know that the live streaming has been stopped, please.